Welcome back to Watch the Booker Man and to episode number 80 of Paul Heyman's TNA, and we're here with one of the big three pay-per-views of the year, Lockdown 2011. We'll begin with a video package which is based largely on the structure of the Six Sides of Steel rather than the individual rivalries that have been built up in the weeks leading into the show. It's more about the fact that all these matches are going to be inside the steel cage, the menacing nature of that structure, and the voiceover suggests that every competitor will walk out of tonight's show a different person than they walked in. This isn't just any pay-per-view, this is Lockdown, the most unforgiving structure in professional wrestling, the most brutal pay-per-view of the year. And the show begins now with the X Division Championship match, and it is Tyler Black who picks up the win in 13 minutes and 48. We sent them out to have a regular match, but to go all out to try and impress the fans, and I think they've done that. A 72 I'm very happy with for an opener. Tyler Black hitting the God's Last Gift, followed by the curb stomp, I am going to say, because we want this to be a decisive victory, but also Strong taking two finishers in defeat does give him a little bit of protection, I suppose, but nonetheless, Tyler Black finally has gold around his waist in TNA. The X Division Championship now belongs to him, and a 75 rating shows that he deserves that. Roderick Strong with a 65, also contributing to a very good match, which is followed by Tyler Black standing tall over his long-term rival Roderick Strong. Notably, his first ever match in TNA was against Roderick Strong, so it's fitting that his first championship also comes against that man. He is handed the title by the referee. The commentator is putting over that this is his fourth attempt at capturing a title in the company. 4 straight months he's been in championship matches. He maybe isn't the choker that some had begun to suggest he was. With the X Division Championship now in possession of the New Age, pressure will be on both the Kings of Wrestling and Sarah Del Rey to win their matches later on in the evening. There is the potential that the X Division title, the World Tag Team titles, and the Knockouts Championship could be coming home with that group who have promised to change professional wrestling. That opening match is followed by footage from earlier today where Team TNA arrived at the building. They may all be on screen here, but it was AJ Styles who first entered the arena. He was on his own, and shortly after, the Forefathers arrived, all 4 of them together of course, ready for their lethal lockdown match against Team ROH. After returning to the live show, Mauro and Taz informed viewers that Team ROH has yet to arrive at the building. Still, as of the second match of the card, they are not here. I also forgot to mention we are in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for this show. It's 3 years running now that TNA has ran Lockdown from this venue. Of course, the 34,000 maybe isn't quite a realistic number, but Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which you I suppose could say is more ROH territory than it is TNA, being in the tri-state. We then go into the Knockouts Championship match, and it's that 3-way with Madison Rayne having been added on Evolve just 24 hours previously. I think this match probably should have been Awesome Kong v Sarah Del Rey inside the cage, but I didn't want Kong to have another defeat, but I wasn't ready for Sarah Del Rey to lose the championship, so Del Rey wins, pinning Madison Rayne. Perhaps Awesome Kong doing a splash from the top rope, looking to have the match won, but Sarah Del Rey is maybe able to throw her into the steel cage, take advantage of Rayne being down, and hit the Royal Butterfly. Whatever way the finish comes about, the important note is that Sarah Del Rey makes defense number 7 of the Knockouts Championship, and the 2 women who have victories over her in TNA previously have both been defeated inside the Six Sides of Steel. We also have the Amazon on the outside during the match, so some kind of interaction to continue what's been going on between Kong and the Amazon. Of course, that's a match that, even if the Amazon isn't the best wrestler, it's something that in terms of a showcase I am slowly building towards. Don't specifically have a time frame for it, but it is going to happen eventually as long as both of them stay healthy. Sarah Del Rey with a 60 isn't that good. She's definitely had better performances before, and a 58 isn't fantastic either, but we can see the overness, the momentum that she is building by the fact that her overness rated segment gets a 72 rating, and it's just her celebrating with the title. The second member of the New Age to be successful in a championship match, proving herself to be the queen of the cage tonight. The dominant championship reign of Del Rey shows no signs of ending. Again, she defeated both of the women who previously held victories over her in TNA. Who's left is got to be the question. Who is next for Sarah Del Rey? We'll of course find out as we continue the build to the next pay-per-view, which will be Sacrifice. We then get the third match of the night, and Bryan Danielson makes his entrance, but is jumped pre-match by Abyss. He is directed by Father James Mitchell. He attacked him at the last pay-per-view, seemingly for no reason. Again, we don't know why Abyss, who has had no trouble facing anybody else in a fair one-on-one match, decides to attack Bryan Danielson from behind, but he does, leaving the American Dragon down and out, throwing him into the exterior of the 6 sides of steel, catching the American Dragon completely off guard. Abyss then picks him up from the floor and lawn darts him into the steel cage's door before throwing him into the ring. Bryan is unable to stand, the referee checks on him, and while he doesn't appear to be in any condition to compete, when he manages to get up, he's telling Abyss he wants this match to go ahead as planned, and Abyss certainly isn't going to back down. And the story of the match, which goes just under 10 minutes, is actually Abyss dominating. Because of the pre-match attack, who knows what would have happened had they had a fair one-on-one, but Abyss absolutely dominates Bryan Danielson, chokeslamming him, but Bryan Danielson kicks out. He then hits him with a black hole slam. Bryan Danielson kicks out. So there is so much fight in Bryan Danielson that Abyss cannot keep him down, even with 2 big moves like that. Eventually, Father James Mitchell grows frustrated and demands the referee opens the door. Abyss is just going to walk out of there and pick up the win if Bryan won't do the smart thing and stay down. However, as he does this, Desmond Wolfe comes down to the ring, pushes James Mitchell out of the way. As Abyss then looks to exit the cage, Desmond Wolfe slams the steel cage door into the monster's face, sending him falling backwards. He then enters the ring and drags Bryan Danielson out of the cage. If you remember on Impact, Bryan Danielson vowed that he wouldn't win this match by cage escape. However, this choice has been taken out of his hands by Desmond Wolfe of all people, and he seems to be continuing to try and form this working relationship with Bryan Danielson. It's not that the two like each other, but Desmond Wolfe has spotted that they worked so well as a unit, and he seems to be trying to continue to stay on Bryan Danielson's good side. Whether this will have that desired effect, we'll again see as this plays out, but I am going to use this opportunity to complete the face turn of Desmond Wolfe. It's been a few months now, he's not done anything heelish, and now he has saved Bryan Danielson from being defeated by Abyss, and perhaps from even more damage and humiliation from the monster. How Bryan Danielson will take this, we don't know, and he isn't really in a state to comprehend what has just happened, as he is now on the outside of the cage, having his arm raised by a referee. The surprise on his face is clear when it becomes apparent that he's won this match. Desmond Wolfe stood beside him as Abyss begins to stir inside the steel cage. Wolfe helps Bryan Danielson to the back with a referee. Once they reach the stage at the top of the ramp, Bryan begins to become aware of what's just happened. He pushes Desmond Wolfe away and stumbles to the back alone. The commentators reminding us once again he vowed he would not win this match by cage escape, and it almost seems that he'd rather have lost the match than have had his words from Thursday be undermined by the choice made by Desmond Wolfe. Wolfe thought he was doing the right thing, but Bryan Danielson is absolutely not having it. Moving into an interview with Mr. Anderson conducted by Jeremy Borash, he speaks about tonight's main event match against Kurt Angle, his usual arrogant self. Mr. Anderson mocks JB throughout the interview, really just putting across what a arsehole he is, or asshole I should say, and he refuses to speak seriously on the very personal issues that have resulted in this match being made. Despite JB trying to get to the bottom of this, he's not having it. Instead, Anderson reiterates that tonight is about a very simple exchange for him. Mr. Anderson will give the dog tags back to Kurt Angle, and he will take the World Championship from him tonight. So he thinks it's going to be pretty straightforward. Of course, stepping in the ring with Kurt Angle is never that. But we go into the fourth match of the night, the World Tag Team Championship match. The Kings of Wrestling defeat Colt Cabana and El Generico in 11 minutes and 25 when Claudio Castagnoli pins Colt Cabana following a Swiss death. It's the third defense of the titles by the Kings of Wrestling against a team who, if you've not watched the last few episodes, you'll certainly be surprised to see them getting a title shot. They won that Battle Royal, and you can see from their individual ratings they're not quite ready yet to be serious contenders in the tag team division, but an 81, I hadn't spotted that until this point, is an excellent rating. Really happy with that. The Kings of Wrestling, when they're on form, getting these ratings 80 and 89, they're two of the most valuable members of the roster, and that's why we're going to continue to push them like we have. They have been absolutely fantastic additions, as is Tyler Black. I feel like I sing the praises every single show. Chris Hero in particular, of course, has future top star written all over him. Despite the plucky display that we'd expect from Cabana and Generico, it is the Kings of Wrestling standing tall. A decisive victory, it has to be said, not taking anything away from the challengers, and hopefully we got some of those great spots in that we've seen between these guys in the past, but definitely a decisive win for the World Tag Team Champions. While there is plenty of the show left, we have to say that the job has been done by the New Age. They've ticked every box. Tyler Black, the X Division Champion, Sara Del Rey, the Knockouts Champion, and the Kings of Wrestling overcoming their challengers to retain their titles. Heading to the back, we see that Team ROH have finally arrived at the building, led of course by Austin Aries, the ROH World Champion, and he carries that title over his shoulder. As the five men reach the entrance of the arena, they are stopped for a moment to be asked questions by SoCal Val. Austin Aries doesn't answer, instead attempted to make the interviewer feel uncomfortable, getting in her face a little bit. He then looks to ANX and the American Wolves and leads them through the door and into the building. They are entering enemy territory, but they don't look afraid at all. Quite the opposite. 5 extremely confident men ahead of Lethal Lockdown, Team ROH versus Team TNA. Match 5 of Lockdown is for the Knockouts Tag Team Champions, Mickie James and Tara defending against the Beautiful People. They won the tournament to become the #1 contenders, and in 11 minutes and 49, Angelina Love is able to escape the cage, closely followed by Velvet Sky. A miscommunication between Mickie James and Tara is what leads to this opening for Angelina Love, and when she leaves, it is the Beautiful People who have won the match and in turn become the new Knockouts Tag Team Champions. So the reign that has lasted since Bound for Glory, the debut of Mickie James, ends here at Lockdown. Not very good performances from Velvet and Angelina, it has to be said. 2 good performances from Mickie James and Tara. And the focus does actually stay on them after the match. Of course, the Beautiful People take the titles, celebrate, but we want to be more about this downbeat moment between Mickie James and Tara, who have finally been defeated. They've been such a great tag team in TNA, so to see them finally lose, we do want to put this over as something of a big moment. Having taken a risk which backfired during the match, Mickie James is the one down for longest, Tara getting up first and helping Mickie to her feet. She's checking on her partner and showing concern for what looks to be a potential injury to Mickie James. However, as Mickie looks to head out of the 6 sides of steel for medical help, Tara grabs her by the hair and pulls her back towards her. With a complete switch in expression and demeanour, Tara throws Mickie James into the cage wall, shockingly turning on her best friend and tag team partner after throwing Mickie into the cage a number of times, perhaps hitting her onto every single side of the 6 sides of steel. Tara grabs Mickie James again and grates her head into the cage. Grabbing her hair once more, she throws Mickie down onto the canvas. She's out. Mickie James has no fight left in her after the title defense and then the post-match attack. She is left in a heap in the ring, Tara looking with disgust on her face towards Mickie James. What has caused this? Of course they've had their issues, but it seemed like they patched them over. Tonight, Tara showing a different side of herself. She is done with Mickie James and the turn is a complete success. Very happy with that, as we then have to move into the Lethal Lockdown hype and we get a look in the war rooms of the 2 teams involved ahead of the video package which promotes the rivalry between TNA and Ring of Honor, or rather the 2 teams, and of course the concept of Lethal Lockdown itself. At Destination X, Austin Aries won a match which secured himself a TNA contract and a shot at the X Division title, which would have come at this very show. Turning that down, Aries would later appear alongside Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards, holding the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Championship as the American Wolves attacked AJ Styles and the then X Division champion Roderick Strong. Aries later explained his issues with Paul Heyman in the middle of the ring, which are recapped then by the leader of Team ROH. We get the talking heads type interviews in this video package to promote the match. Paul Heyman and AJ Styles also speaking about the upcoming Lethal Lockdown, putting over the significance of this match for Team TNA. Of course, Austin Aries puts over how important this is for Team ROH. They've been shut down, they've been cast aside, they've been put on the shelf, but tonight is the chance for them to showcase that they are every bit as good. In fact, they are better than TNA, and they are not going to go away quietly at all. We go into that lethal lockdown match. It's the timed entrances, so we do end up with a pretty long 26-minute match. A 71 is okay. The key thing to note is that AJ Styles is entrant number 1 for his team, while Austin Aries is entrant number 5. Team ROH getting the man advantage based on what the commentators say was a pre-match coin toss. Austin Aries, Davey Richards, Eddie Edwards, Kenny King and Rhett Titus versus AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, James Storm and Robert Roode. And it is actually a victory for Team ROH. Like I said, 26 minutes and 42. AJ Styles takes a stunt bump during the match. I know that a few times they've done spots on the top of the lethal lockdown structure, so maybe something like that. I'll try and find a clip to put in here to highlight what happened to AJ Styles and why he wasn't involved in the finish, with just Austin Aries and Frankie Kazarian on their feet for the finish of the match. Austin Aries hitting a brainbuster to Frankie Kazarian, the Ring of Honor World Champion, securing the victory for Team ROH. And on TNA's own pay-per-view, one of the signature events of this company, they have been defeated by this outside threat, so we know for certain now this isn't the last we're going to hear from Team ROH. Where this goes in the future, who knows? Paul Heyman almost certainly regretting his decision to invite them to his show, but nonetheless, they stand tall in the ring. The wreckage and chaos that always follows a lethal lockdown. We pan around the ringside area, seeing just how much damage has been done to these 10 men. Team ROH are unable to stand tall together in the ring, despite this being a victory for all 5 of them. It is only Austin Aries who remains as the last man standing, stood in the middle of the ring, over Frankie Kazarian. Bodies are scattered everywhere, like I said. Eventually, on the outside of the cage, all 5 members of Team ROH manage to regroup. They stand on the stage and they're just gloating, lording it over the TNA fanbase who are in attendance. Mauro and Taz remind us of the ominous warning from Austin Aries, who claimed that tonight was just the beginning. Hopefully, with us being in Pittsburgh, there is a little bit of a pocket of support for Ring of Honor. I'm not sure whether it'd even be 50-50 or maybe go completely the other way, but I do think that when you have this company versus company, there is always going to be that element where there's a fan base of both sides, hopefully at the shows, and maybe that helps create a unique environment and a really good atmosphere. Obviously, it's just a game, so probably shouldn't think too much into that. But while Ring of Honor has got exactly what they wanted tonight, or the Ring of Honor representatives, it is impossible to know what is next for these discontented outsiders. They felt cast aside, but they've proved that they belong here, especially at the very top of this business. We then go into an interview with Jeremy Borash, talking to Kurt Angle, and he gives a much more serious response to the issues between him and his opponent, Mr. Anderson. Of course, Anderson kind of blew off the seriousness of the situation. Kurt Angle also does give a little bit of word of what we've just seen. He can't focus on that right now. Team ROH beat Team TNA. That's of course going to cause shockwaves throughout the locker room, but Kurt Angle has to get that out of his mind as soon as he can. He speaks instead about the disrespect Mr. Anderson has shown him over the last weeks, and it's not just him. The person who gave him those dog tags, it was a serviceman. There's obviously Kurt Angle has a very patriotic side, and that's how we want to bring the emotion into this storyline. Anderson has done something, he's taken away something that he'll never get back, because nobody in the locker room or the audience will be able to look at Anderson in the same way. Maybe just to Anderson it's mind games, but actually he's never going to be able to regain the respect that he's lost in the way that he's acted throughout the last month. It's one thing to be an asshole, it's another thing to do what he's done in pursuit of the World Heavyweight Championship. As Kurt Angle continues to speak, Paul Heyman walks in, the colour drained from his face, very serious, very stressed, very concerned, and he tells Kurt that whatever happens in the match tonight, they need to talk. Angle actually seems annoyed that Paul's trying to distract him in a way pre-match, and he heads off towards the ring. Kurt is focused on the main event, the World Heavyweight Championship match. Only an 84, that's disappointing. One, because I know these two have had brilliant matches in the past, particularly their match Lockdown 2010 inside the steel cage, which is essentially, if I'm being honest, what we're basing this match off. The booking isn't going to be something that's overly complicated. Basically, if you want to see how this match went, try and find that match, because it is absolutely worth watching. Described as an exceptional match, but I'm pretty sure their match at Final Resolution got a 90. Maybe they've lost overness in the last few months, or maybe one of them, probably Mr. Anderson, has slightly less momentum than he did. As we see, a 76. Kurt Angle has had to carry the match, successfully so, I might add, but Angle does win the match, and it's decisive. With the nature of the storyline, I felt that it had to be a decisive win for Kurt Angle here tonight because it's got so personal and it is by submission, just to give him that extra level of vindication to see Mr. Anderson tapping out in the middle of the ring. These guys knew how to have brutal, physical, intense matches, and Kurt Angle amazingly makes defense number 15 of the TNA World Heavyweight title. This isn't going to be our best show ever, but I am happy with the show overall and the fact that we got the crowd buzzing with what is an exceptional match described by the game. So while it's not up there in the 90s, it's still a very, very solid main event of the pay-per-view. Kurt Angle returns to his feet following the victory. A brutal back and forth that really could have gone either way. During these uncertain times in TNA, one thing has been constant for what is now an entire calendar year. At Lockdown 2010, Kurt Angle defeated AJ Styles to become the World Heavyweight Champion of the company. He is now the longest reigning holder of this title in company history. He's probably held this belt for about 50% of the time that it's existed, to be fair, because I think he's on his 5th reign here out of 9 total reigns, or maybe 10 total reigns throughout everybody. Kurt Angle stands tall with that championship, which is basically synonymous with him in my mind now. That image that I often put in the thumbnail of Kurt Angle with a title over his shoulder, that's basically all I can imagine when I think of the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. He's also got his dog tags back. A happy ending for Kurt Angle overall in his hometown, and hopefully it is a feel-good way to end Lockdown. Last year he was the hero, winning the title in front of his hometown crowd, and again he walks out the hero again. Mauro and Taz putting over the incredible reign of the Wrestling Machine. An 81 I'm happy with. Fantastic feedback from the crowd. The buy rates aren't something that I really pay much attention to. As with TV ratings, I don't think they're really getting any better. 34,717 in attendance. A pay rise request from Kenny King. He's just picked up a huge win, or been part of a huge win at a huge pay-per-view, so I'm happy to give him that. Let's see if there's anything interesting on the emails. There's a couple of injuries that I need to mention actually. Nick Jackson got injured, but he's now fully fit, which is good to see. Brian Kendrick has got neck nerve damage. It says he can work through it, but it's like over a year that he's out for. So I'm not sure how I'm going to deal with that. I'll probably use him in another match, maybe on Impact or Evolve, and see how it affects his in-ring rating. But Brian Kendrick could potentially be missing a year of action here, which wouldn't be good. Kurt Angle having a go at the Amazon. Don't worry, she's not going to need to sell all that much. But Kurt Angle clearly got his priorities straight there. He's just picked up a win in a huge pay-per-view main event. Still takes the time out to have a go at one of the newcomers in the company. But thank you for watching Lockdown 2011, and I'll see you for next week's episode.